And here is our wing. What I've done is I've got a 7-inch cord. I've got carbon arrow spars, two 22-inch sections joined at the middle. Pretty sturdy. And then the ailerons don't need to be the full length of the wing, and so I've just made them 10-inch ailerons on either side. On the ailerons, once I cut them, they're 1.5 inches by 10 inches. I came in 1/4 inch, cut just the paper, peeled that off, and then took a sanding block, sanded that down to make it beveled, and then I took simple packing tape, shipping tape, and I stuck the aileron onto the wing at its designated spot, and then I ran 2 pieces across at an angle to cover the corners. And on the back side I have just three simple pieces that go vertically this way, so it's very, very strong. Ain't coming off of there. And now let's do the other side. On the other side right now, all I've got is this one piece. And in just a minute, it'll be just like the other one. Okay, so here's our build so far. We have our wing. We have our 44-inch wing, arm and wing, carbon reinforced with spars inside, 1.5-inch ailerons attached there. We haven't put the servos on yet. I've moved on to the fuselage. I love the triangle fuselage. The triangle is just such a strong geometric shape, and so I use the fuselage shaped like a triangle, not the square typically you see. So what I've done is I've got a 30-inch tube here, and on the end I've attached an 8-inch tube, and this is where the motor attaches, and I like to do that. It's a crumple zone. The fuselage itself is carbon reinforced. Down the 2 sides here there's carbon spars that are 1 millimeter by 5 millimeter, and they're 30 inches long, cut to size. On the end, our crumple zone. The crumple zone, when the motor is attached here, typically when you crash, if you crash, you crash into the ground and the motor takes the hit. With having the crumple zone not reinforced, it gives, so that it saves the motor. It doesn't destroy the motor if you crash. Also, the beauty of it is, if I do that and it crumples, I just cut it right here, make a new one, stick it on, and go. I've done it numerous times with my other plane, the Agent Orange. If any of you have seen my videos on the other planes I've built, the Agent Orange, I've had a number of times crashed and just put a new nose on it instead of having to rebuild your whole aircraft. And the carbon spars really hold up to the beating. So this is where my motor is going to mount when it does. This is going to be talked about later. So what I typically do is mount the plane, build the plane so that it's upright this way. However, I want to do it this way. The problem is the geometry. How am I going to get a wing to sit up here securely? It's the point. Well, funny you should ask. I happen to have come up with a solution. My solution is 2 triangles, two sections of triangle fuselage. I've beveled the insides for aerodynamics, and I've coated them in ironed-on glue, hot glue, so that it's durable. I took the paper off of a couple of strips of foam board and put those in there as pads that kind of give it a little buffer so that it sets a little more securely. The black is bottom, and it sits just like this. And there we have it. Triangle fuselage, problem solved. This affords the opportunity to attach a landing gear if you would like. It's very difficult to attach landing gear to fuselage shaped like that. So I'm going to do it this way in the event that I do want to put landing gear, because I'm considering it. But there's our build so far. And this is our caution plane. Okay, here's our tail section. We have a 1 foot by 7 inches square. I give a little cut back here. Here's 4 inches here to make some sweep. I went along this edge. I cut back 1/4 of an inch. I think it's a 1/2 inch actually. A 1/2 inch. Cut the paper off. Took a sanding block. Sanded the edges down to give it a nice, some nice aerodynamic, nice sharp leading edge there. And then we added 1.5 inch elevator all the way across the length of the entire tail section, horizontal stabilizer. The vertical stabilizer is 7.5 inches high, and it extends the 7 inches into here. I'm just notched out a little of the fuselage along the top seam there. I just cut that out, and then again on the edges, just like I did on the horizontal stabilizer, on the vertical stabilizer, I cut back the paper, used a sanding block, and I sanded each side evenly so that it comes to a fine point in a balance. It's not just one-sided beveled, it's beveled on either side, and it has a nice edge to it. And it is carbon reinforced tape on it. Also 1.5 inch rudder. And I did notch out the rudder here so that when the elevator is up, the rudder will still be able to articulate back and forth. And as you see, that angle is plenty. There is no way that elevator is ever going to be that high in flight. It might come up like that, maybe a little bit like that, pulling out of a dive, but it will never interfere. I don't think the servo will even pull it up that high, but it'll never interfere. But that's what we have. Plenty of space there. And here's our build so far. This is the caution plane. It's fully finished. The fuselage part, the airframe part. There are no electronics on it yet. I've added a tail, and for the first time ever, I'm using a rudder. The rudder is just one simple piece of foam board. I cut back on the edges about a 1/2 inch, sanded them down to a nice edge, so all the edges are beveled for aerodynamics. All the control surfaces are coated with carbon reinforced packing tape and then covered in sealing tape. Working rudder to attach the wing to the fuselage. I just ran 2 skewers through here, which will be cut to size in the end, and just 4 rubber bands holds it on quite nicely. Alright, now the one thing I don't particularly care for is this boxy kind of robotic look here. So what I came up with was a more tapered look. So here's a model of my tapered look. I cut a little bit off of the edges and some out of this section here, and then I put them together. This is the original piece, and I just filled in the blank with these little 3 sections here. And I think that I'm gonna like that look better, so I've laid out my markings on here and on the underside. I'm going to cut those out and make it look just like this, give it a little bit more of an aerodynamic shape, a little less boxy robotic look to it. So let's get working on that. Okay, so we got our servos mounted into the wings, left and right, connected up. Wires just simply taped across there nice and firm. Went through here, got a couple connections here to make it a little easier to put it on. Always tape your connections. I learned that the hard way. Lost a good plane that way. So there's that. And now we're going to be mounting. I had to get a little creative to mount these. This is my elevator servo, and what I did was I built a little tower, two of these little towers of foam by peeling off the paper and just gluing them together. Glued one aft of it, glued the servo in, then glued this in front of it, and this little access hatch will simply just tape back in place. It's not going to affect the structural integrity of this aircraft at all, because here's the carbon spar that supports this area, and we'll just glue that back in place. If I do need to get in it, I just use a razor blade, cut through that hole or the slot, and it'll open right up again. Real easy. Corona 929 servo in there. Those little suckers are workhorses, and I've used them for lots of stuff. Alright, let's get mounting the servo horns. Go from there. So, when I was putting the elevator servo in, it was a little difficult to get in there and work with my fat fingers. It's in there pretty solid though. So what I decided to do on the rudder servo is go ahead and build it all up now. It's good and solid there. It's glued on both the bottom and the side there. Pretty sturdy. So let's see if we can find a nice creative way to get this thing in there. Ooh, there it is. Alright, now as you see, I built it up a little bit so it's higher. That's so I don't have such a steep angle on this push rod here, so it doesn't bind. I elevated the servo up there, so when the control horn is mounted, it'll be more a straighter shot. So let's glue this thing on. Push that there. Gonna figure out where we need it. Put some glue in right in front of it, and then push it in place. On the foam board there, I've peeled the paper off so that it doesn't come loose. We'll put a big glob in there. Just set her in it. Take a little skewer. And hold it down a little bit. Okay, and that'll be dry in just a few minutes. It'll be cooled. Then we'll cut our push rod to length. Yep, still not ready yet. Be ready in just a second. Now we got a servo horn in here. Not a servo horn. Control horn. And that's gonna mount here. For these control horns, all I do is make a small square and then wedge it in there. The foam board will make a little slit and wedge it in there, and then hot glue them in place. That's how I did that one. Okay, push rod is There we go. Alright, so that's going to easily... Yep, that ought to work. Well, okay, here's our finished product. The caution plane. Everything's all set. Ailerons, elevator, rudder. Big motor with lots of power. This thing will probably be able to hover as powerful as this thing is. Big 10-inch prop here. Got our motor mount made out of aluminum stock. It's double-sided taped under here. I'm going to do a duct tape around here just to give it some support. We have just a little bit of down angle on the shaft of the motor, so that when we do the high speed stuff, it doesn't climb. And there she is. Looks like it's ready for flight. It's a nice morning. However, I did promise my little girl I would not maiden it without her, and I'm not going to do it. So we'll wait till this afternoon after school. It's not too windy. And go from there. Well, here we are in the beautiful Lone Star State of Texas on a gorgeous mid-December afternoon. I'm wearing shorts as usual, and we are about to maiden our caution plane. The caution plane is a triangle fuselage plane, and it's the first time I've ever built a plane with a rudder, elevator. Well, we always use the elevator. That looks like a little, there, and then we have up, down, we got right and left. All right, well, we're gonna toss this bad boy into the wind and see what happens. Using the rudder for the first time ever. Don't lose it in the sun. Oh, dang! Oh man, I hit the throttle up and lost control.